I'm Emma, 27 years old, and after years of pushing myself to the limit, I finally got the recognition I deserved. The best part wasn't just the new title, it was the significantly bigger paycheck that came with it. After all the hard work, finally landing that promotion felt surreal. But there was something more. For years, I'd dreamed of a special reward for myself, something that felt like a reflection of my success. So, I made a decision. I was going to buy myself a new car. But not just any car. I wanted something that would make me feel proud. Something I'd earned. Something that said, "This is me." After a few weeks of research, comparing features and financing options, I found it. The perfect car. A brand new Mercedes. I couldn't help but feel a little giddy as I walked into the dealership last Thursday. The showroom gleamed with the polished finish of sleek models, but one car in particular caught my eye. Mike, the salesman, was surprisingly nice. He didn't talk down to me like some of the other salespeople did to women. I sat behind the wheel, running my hands over the leather seats and feeling the smooth, powerful hum of the engine. It was mine. 2 hours later, I was driving my dream car off the lot. I still couldn't quite believe it as I slid into the driver's seat, hands steady on the wheel, a small smile tugging at my lips. The first few days were pure bliss. Every time I walked up to it in the parking lot at work, I couldn't help but smile. My colleagues were impressed, and honestly, I felt proud of myself. I had earned this, every penny of it. But then came Saturday, dinner at my parents' house. I knew things would be different, but I wasn't prepared for the full impact of it. As I pulled into the driveway, Sarah, my younger sister, was the first one to rush out. She's 20, still in college, and always the baby of the family. The moment she saw my car, her jaw dropped, and she ran around it, practically drooling over it. But then my parents came outside, and their reactions weren't quite as enthusiastic. Mum's eyes widened. Dad furrowed his brow in that familiar way that always made me feel like I was about to be lectured. We went inside for dinner, and as expected, Sarah couldn't stop talking about the car. "Emma, you have to let me drive it just once. My friends would die if they saw me in that car," she whined. I felt my irritation rise, but I kept my voice steady. "No, Sarah, it's brand new, and I'm not comfortable with anyone else driving it yet." But of course, Sarah wouldn't drop it. "You're being selfish. Mom, Dad, tell her she's being selfish." My mom shook her head. "You're being too hard on her, Emma." Dad, in his usual disappointed tone, added, "Emma, your sister just wants to borrow it for a little while. Would it kill you to share?" I repeated firmly, "No." Sarah's face turned red, then nearly green with anger. She shoved her chair back with a screech and stormed off. I heard her stomping up the stairs, slamming her bedroom door. My parents exchanged a look. Mum muttered something under her breath about how I was being selfish. But honestly, all I wanted was to eat my dinner in peace. So, I finished quickly, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. I couldn't stop the memory of all the times I had been the one to sacrifice. The one who always had to be more mature. Nothing had changed since then. It was still me, the bad guy, for not giving Sarah exactly what she wanted. I couldn't help but wonder, is that how it would always be? Would I ever be able to enjoy the things I'd worked so hard for without feeling like I owed someone else a piece of it? The next 2 weeks went by, and everything seemed to fall back into place. Or so I thought. I threw myself into work, focusing on my projects and basking in the small victories of my promotion. But there was always a nagging feeling in the back of my mind, like something was about to go wrong. And of course it did. It started with a call from Mum on a Wednesday morning. "Emma," she began, her voice tight with that unmistakable tone, "your father and I think we need to have a family meeting." I froze. My stomach dropped. A family meeting? That's never a good sign. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound calm, though the words barely made it past my lips. "Of course, everything's fine," she said quickly. But I could hear the anxiety creeping in. "We just need to talk. It's about your car." My heart sank. I already knew where this was going. I tried to bite back the frustration, but it was impossible. "What about it, Mum?" "Well, your father and I were talking last night, and we think you should let Sarah borrow it. Just for a weekend trip. Nothing too crazy. She's been asking about it non-stop. And I think it would be good for you to show a little generosity." I stared at my phone, trying to process what she was saying. Generosity? I had bought that car with my own hard-earned money, after years of sacrificing everything for everyone else. My success, And now they were asking me to give it away. I clenched my jaw. Mum, I told you already. It's my car. I'm not comfortable letting anyone else drive it, especially Sarah. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and when she spoke again, her voice had a pleading edge. Emma, sweetie, Sarah's been going through a tough time. She needs this. It's not just a car, it's about showing her that you care, that you're willing to help. Can't you see that? I let out a slow breath, trying to steady myself. I'm sorry, Mum, but I can't just give her my car because she's upset. She needs to learn that not everything is handed to her. There was a long silence, and I could feel the weight of her disappointment through the phone. Well, we thought you'd be more understanding. But if you're not willing to help out your sister... I am not helping her by enabling her behaviour, Mum, I snapped, the frustration spilling out before I could stop it. I've spent my whole life trying to be the perfect daughter, and it's never enough. You always choose her over me. Always. The words hung in the air, and I instantly regretted them. But at the same time, they were out there. I couldn't take them back. Emma, we're not choosing anyone over anyone else, Mum replied, her voice now stern. We're just trying to keep the peace. Sarah is our daughter too. The ache in my chest deepened. I'm your daughter too, I muttered, but she was already hanging up, leaving me to stew in my own frustration. That night, I got a text from Sarah. It was a simple message, but it was enough to send my blood boiling. Hey, can I borrow your car for the weekend? I really need it. You know how much I've been struggling lately. I could almost hear the desperation in her words, but I wasn't falling for it this time. My finger hovered over the reply button, but I hesitated. Finally, I typed back, No, Sarah, you've had enough chances. You're not driving my car. The next day, things took a turn for the worse. I got home from work to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My heart skipped a beat. I had locked it. As I stepped inside, I was hit with the unmistakable scent of stale alcohol and cigarette smoke. My eyes immediately scanned the room. Empty beer bottles, a few half-eaten pizza boxes scattered across the floor, and my car keys resting on the kitchen counter. My stomach twisted. She took my car again, without asking. I texted Sarah, my hands shaking with anger. Where is my car? Her reply was almost immediate. I needed it for a party. Relax, it's fine. Fine. My breath came fast as I texted back. You took it without asking, and now my apartment is a mess. Why do you think this is acceptable? She didn't respond immediately, and the silence felt like a slap in the face. I knew she was at home, probably laughing it off with Mum and Dad, who would no doubt excuse her actions as they always did. When I called Mum to confront her about it, she acted like it was no big deal. Emma, calm down. Sarah is just being a little reckless, but she's learning. She didn't mean any harm. I felt the blood rush to my face. Learning? She's 20 years old, Mom. She's stolen my car twice now, and you keep making excuses for her. You can't keep fixing everything for her. There was a long pause, and when Mum spoke again, her voice was colder. You're overreacting. This is just what she does. We're handling it. Handling it? I repeated, my voice growing louder. This is exactly why I can't trust you. You always protect her, and I'm left to deal with the consequences. You don't even see it, do you? I slammed the phone down, leaving my parents' excuses ringing in my ears. I was done. I was done letting them walk all over me. I was done being the good daughter. It was time for me to take control, to stop letting them dictate my life. But no matter how much I tried to push back, the weight of my family's expectations, their disappointments and their demands kept crashing down on me, and it felt like I was suffocating under it all. The pressure had been building for weeks, and I could feel it cracking inside me, like a dam about to break. It wasn't just the constant demands from my parents or Sarah's entitlement, it was everything. The car, the apartment, the endless cycle of guilt trips and excuses. I had spent my whole life trying to be the good daughter, the responsible one. And for what? So they could keep taking from me, keep expecting me to fix their mistakes, and always put Sarah first. I couldn't take it anymore. It came to a head one Sunday afternoon, just a few days after Sarah had stolen my car for the third time in as many weeks. I was sitting in my apartment, trying to unwind after work, when my phone rang. It was Mom. I stared at the screen for a moment, trying to decide if I should answer, but my finger hovered over the call button as an unsettling thought crossed my mind. What if this was it? What if this was the final straw? I answered, bracing myself for whatever was about to come. Emma, Mom said, her voice tight. We need to talk. It's about Sarah. Of course it was about Sarah. It was always about Sarah. What now? I asked, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. She's in trouble again. This time it's serious, Mom continued. Her words rushed. She got into some trouble with her friends, and they've been spreading rumors about her. We need you to come to the house and help fix it. You're the only one who can make things right. I could feel my pulse rising. This was the moment I had been dreading. The moment I realized that no matter how hard I tried, I would never be good enough for them. No matter what I did, it would never be enough to stop them from favoring Sarah. What kind of trouble are we talking about? I demanded, my voice shaking with frustration. She got into a fight at a party. And she's been telling people that she's been getting harassed by her co-workers. But none of it is true. You know how she is. We need you to fix this, Emma. You need to talk to your boss and make sure nothing gets out. You have the power to protect her. That was the moment. That was when everything I'd been holding inside exploded. I had spent my entire life walking on eggshells, trying to please them, trying to fix everything for Sarah. But now, I realized that no matter how much I sacrificed, no matter how hard I worked, they would never see me. They would never appreciate me. I slammed the phone down before my mother could finish talking, my breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. My hands trembled, my chest tight with the weight of it all. It wasn't just the car or the apartment anymore. It was everything. It was the years of being second best. The years of watching Sarah get away with everything while I had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. I couldn't do it anymore. I grabbed my keys and stormed out of the apartment, making my way to the front door. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. It was Mum again, probably begging me to come to the house and fix everything for Sarah. I didn't want to hear it anymore. When I got to my car, I paused. I thought about driving to my parents' house and finally putting an end to all of this. But then, the thought hit me like a lightning bolt. Why am I still here? I hadn't been happy in years. I hadn't been heard. I was suffocating under their expectations, under the constant pressure to be the good daughter, the one who always fixed things for them. But I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't going to be the one who always picked up the pieces for them. With that thought, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I wasn't going to live my life on their terms, constantly catering to Sarah's whims while I was ignored and dismissed. I dialed my boss's number. "Richard, it's Emma," I said, my voice steady. "I need to take a leave of absence. I'm done. I need to take control of my life." I hung up the phone, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. I wasn't going to fix their mess anymore, not this time. But just as I was about to get into my car, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from Sarah. "Hey, I need you to take care of something for me. I'm in a really tight spot, and you're the only one who can help." My hands clenched around the phone. No. I had already given up too much for her, for them. I had nothing left to give. I typed my response, my fingers shaking but determined. "No, Sarah, I'm done. You've taken everything from me and I'm not doing it anymore." I sent the message and put my phone down, letting the silence take over. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from the guilt. Free from the weight of their expectations. As I drove away from my parents' house for the last time, a strange calm settled over me. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally taking control of my own life, and no one was going to take that away from me. The fallout from my defiance didn't take long to hit. The very next day, my phone exploded with messages, calls, texts, and even an email from Mum. She was relentless, sending a steady stream of emotional pleas, guilt trips, and accusations. "Emma, how could you do this to your sister? You're being so selfish. This is tearing the family apart." It all felt like a whirlwind, the words swirling around me as I sat in my apartment, trying to breathe through the storm. I hadn't expected them to take it well, but the magnitude of their reaction stung. I thought about what my mum had said, how I was tearing the family apart. But that's what they had always done to me. They had torn me apart for years, and for the first time, I was standing up for myself. It wasn't easy. Later that day, my phone buzzed again. But this time, it was a call from Dad. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I braced myself for his disappointment. "Emma," he started, his voice clipped. "What the hell is going on? You've been ignoring us for days, and now you've completely cut yourself off from the family. Your mother is beside herself." I clenched my jaw. "I'm not cutting anyone off, Dad. I'm just done letting you guys walk all over me." He sighed heavily, and I could hear the anger simmering beneath his words. You think you're the only one who's had a hard time? Sarah's been struggling and we've been trying to help her, but you don't care about anyone but yourself. You've been acting like the martyr your whole life. The sting of his words cut deeper than I expected. I felt my chest tighten. It wasn't about being a martyr. It was about not being heard, not being seen. It was about always having to sacrifice my happiness, my peace, for everyone else. I'm tired of being the one who always has to fix everything, I said, my voice trembling slightly, but growing steadier with each word. I'm not your fixer, Dad. I'm not Sarah's caretaker. I'm not going to be the person you turn to when you don't want to deal with the consequences of your actions. There was a long pause. When Dad spoke again, his tone was softer, more resigned. You really don't see it, do you? You've always been the strong one, the one we could rely on. And now you're just walking away. I don't know how to fix this, Emma. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness rise up in me. He didn't understand. He never understood. I'm not walking away, I said quietly. I'm just finally taking care of myself. The line went silent for a long moment, before Dad muttered something under his breath and hung up. I sat there, the silence swallowing me up. My hands were shaking, my heart still racing from the tension of the conversation. A strange emptiness washed over me as I stared at my phone, the weight of the last few weeks finally crashing down on me. It wasn't just the confrontation with my parents, it was everything. The years of being overlooked, the years of being expected to sacrifice for everyone else. Part of me felt guilty. But there was another part, a stronger part, that felt relieved. I wasn't doing this for them anymore. I wasn't going to keep sacrificing myself. The next few days passed in a blur. My parents didn't call again. Neither did Sarah. It was like they had disappeared from my life, and I, for the first time in years, didn't feel the constant pressure weighing on me. I tried to ignore the gnawing guilt that crept in every now and then, but deep down, I knew I had made the right choice. I spent my time focusing on my work and taking small steps toward moving forward. I thought about my wedding plans, how I had always envisioned it as a shared experience with my family. But now, with everything that had happened, I couldn't imagine having them there. I called my best friend Jen later that week. She had been my rock through everything, and hearing her voice calmed the anxiety that still lurked in my chest. Hey Jen, I said, trying to sound casual, but she could hear the tension in my voice. Emma, what happened? Your texts were all over the place, she said, her concern evident. I sighed. It's my family. I don't know how to explain it, but I had to walk away. I've been the one holding everything together, and now I just can't do it anymore. I feel free, but also, I don't know, scared. I feel like I'm losing everything. Jen paused for a moment, and I could almost hear her thinking. You're not losing everything. You're just losing the things that never truly cared about you. The family that sees you as a tool for their convenience isn't really family, Emma. You deserve more than that. I felt my chest tighten, but this time it wasn't with sadness. It was with a growing sense of clarity. You're right. I've been giving them everything, and they've never seen me. They never will. Jen's words were a balm, soothing the wound that had been festering for years. You've got this, Emma. You've always been strong, and you'll be better off on your own in the long run. I hung up, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. I didn't know what would happen next, whether I'd ever rebuild my relationship with my parents or Sarah, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them dictate my life anymore. I was going to build the life I wanted, with or without them. And in that moment, I felt more certain than ever that this was the right path. It's been 3 months since I made the hardest decision of my life, and somehow, it's already starting to feel like a distant memory. My apartment is quieter now. No more frantic calls from my parents or Sarah. No more guilt trips or expectations. I finally found the peace I never knew I was missing. It's strange how quickly things can change when you stop holding on to the past and start focusing on what truly matters. Yourself. The first few weeks after cutting ties were rough. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a pang of guilt every time I passed my phone, wondering if my parents would finally reach out, if they would somehow understand. But as the days went by, I found my footing. I remembered who I was before the weight of their demands crushed me. I realized I wasn't just Emma, the one who fixed everything for everyone. I was Emma, the woman who had fought for her success, who deserved happiness on her own terms. I threw myself into my wedding plans with Jake, my fiancé. Planning a wedding without the pressure of family expectations felt liberating. I was finally able to make decisions without worrying about my parents' opinions. I picked a venue that felt right for us, chose colours that I loved, and we even hired a photographer who captured the kind of candid moments that felt real, not staged for show. My friends rallied around me, helping with the small details and filling in the spaces my family once occupied. The best part, I didn't feel like I was pretending. There were no uncomfortable family dinners or passive-aggressive comments from Sarah. It was just me and Jake, enjoying every minute of our engagement without the weight of past disappointments hanging over us. I felt seen, loved and valued, for the first time, not because of what I could give, but simply because I was. Of course, there were still moments of doubt. The guilt still lingered, especially on the days when I missed my old home, or when I saw photos of my family's gatherings that I was no longer a part of. But slowly, I learned that family wasn't defined by blood. It was about who showed up for you, who respected you, and who made space for you to be your true self. A few weeks after I finally made the break, I received a message from my aunt. She had always been the one family member who understood me, the one who never made me feel like I had to compete for love or attention. She'd reached out to tell me that Sarah had called her, crying about the damage I had done to the family, but my aunt's words gave me peace. "You did the right thing, Emma. They'll come around or they won't. But don't let that stop you from living your life. You deserve happiness." I held on to that advice as I continued planning the wedding, embracing the quiet joy of knowing I was doing what felt right for me. The day of the wedding arrived, and it felt like a dream. The ceremony was small but intimate, with Jake by my side, our friends in the seats, and no one there who would try to make it about them. I walked down the aisle, not as someone's daughter or sister, but as me, Emma, the woman I had always been but never had the chance to fully be. The weight that had always been there, the expectation that I would always be the one to sacrifice for others, was gone. As we exchanged vows, I couldn't help but think of the journey it had taken to get here. How much I'd endured, how much I'd changed. And the most important lesson I'd learned was that my happiness couldn't depend on anyone else's approval. I was allowed to put myself first. Weeks passed, and I found myself settling into a rhythm. I no longer felt like I was constantly fighting for space in my own life. I was building a future with Jake, and for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of what I had achieved on my own terms. One evening, a letter arrived at my apartment. It was from my parents. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, there was no apology, no admission of wrongdoing. But the words were different than I expected. They acknowledged that things had been hard between us and expressed a desire to find a way forward, though they still didn't fully understand my decision. They weren't asking for forgiveness, but they were offering something I never thought I would see: respect for my boundaries. I folded the letter and set it down, feeling a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, relief. But more than anything, I felt peace. The truth was, I didn't need their approval anymore. The healing, the growth, it had come from within. I had stopped looking for validation outside of myself. And that, I realized, was the most freeing part of all. I didn't reach out to them right away. I wasn't sure if I was ready. But as time went on, I realized I didn't have to make a decision right away. Life was about creating space for yourself to grow, to heal, and to decide what you wanted, without waiting for others to tell you what was right. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I wanted: to live without regret, to choose my own path, and to be the person I was always meant to be. So, I let the letter sit there. For now, I was just going to focus on my new life, the one I had built on my own terms, the one where I was the person in control of my happiness, and that felt like the greatest victory of all. Story 2. 2 weeks ago, I had my daughter. I selected her godparents and held her christening at church 2 days ago. My mum is unhappy because I didn't ask her to the christening or choose her as a godparent. I have reasons, though. Let me rewind. I chose single parenting. I had a daughter with my ex. After I became pregnant, I told him I wanted to marry before the kid was born. After dating for years and living together for 2 years, I didn't think it was crazy to ask to get married. He disagreed with me. He wanted more time to decide whether to marry. I couldn't wait anymore, so I urged him to propose or we were done. Even before I offered him the ultimatum, I knew we would break up. I was fine with being a single mum, because honestly, what good marriage started with an ultimatum? Within weeks he went, leaving me alone. He told me he was willing to be a father, but when we broke up, he said he wasn't. So I consulted 2 friends and hired a lawyer. He'll pay child support, but I'll have complete custody. Despite his freedom, he hasn't visited. As you can tell, I wasn't happy with the outcome. Even after years together, my partner deserted me at the start of my pregnancy because he wasn't ready to marry me. In addition, he informed me he wasn't ready to be a father. I wanted someone to help me mentally because I was struggling. Ordinarily, families would support people in similar situations, but only my friends did. Maria and Kelly, my high school best pals, visited me often. They had their own lives and work, yet they helped me. Even during labor, they were my only companions. I chose the two of them as my daughter's godmothers. I never considered choosing my mother, for many reasons. The biggest was that she flatly denied my call to stand by me throughout labor. It was hard living alone during my pregnancy. As I approached my due date, my friends volunteered to stay with me. But Maria is married with a 3-year-old kid, and Kelly's business is too distant from mine. Even then, they attempted to convince me to let them care for me, but I trusted my mother like a fool. She became active in my life after learning I was pregnant, and she would be a grandmother. My parents had favorites, so my mom and I weren't close before then. Hannah, my youngest sister, was always her favorite. After we left for college, my family only met for holidays and birthdays, but we maintained in touch. My dad died 2 years ago, and we stopped talking after his funeral. Hannah and my mom still talked. They were close and often hung out. I felt like there was an invisible wall between us when I met them. I wasn't surprised. They were constantly together, even when my dad was alive. Hannah and my mom were in another unit than my dad and me. I understood that my mom valued Hannah more over me over time and couldn't change it. When I announced my pregnancy on social media, my mom became kinder to me, which was unusual. She tried to contact me. Sometimes she visited and called me, which was seldom before. In my final weeks of pregnancy, I needed someone to help me out. I called my mother to invite her over. She promised, but cancelled at the last minute. She said she couldn't live with me since her neighborhood had been robbed, and she didn't feel safe leaving the house without anybody to watch it. Whether she was telling the truth or making it up, I was dissatisfied. I didn't pursue it, but I left it. So I was alone even in my latter weeks of pregnancy. I succeeded somehow. When I started having contractions, I called my mother first. I informed her that I was going into labor and needed her here. She initially said she was too busy at work, but it was Sunday, so I didn't know what she did for work. I started arguing with her on the phone since I was already upset, and she finally told me she couldn't help me and that I had to work it out myself because she had to help Hannah. Hannah had moved in with her a few weeks earlier, so she couldn't be with me during my final weeks of pregnancy. After her boyfriend dumped her, Hannah was depressed, so my mum needed to be there for her. It was her first concern, she said. I didn't understand how anything could be more essential than her daughter's labor, but I didn't want to fight. After she explained her absence, I hung up and called Maria and Kelly. Within minutes, Maria drove me to the hospital, and Kelly arrived right there. They stayed with me till the kid was delivered, and helped me adjust for a few days, until I was comfortable alone. I can't repay them, but I can make them my daughter's godmothers. However, my mum called me a week after my baby was born, to ask if she might visit that day. I didn't like how she was acting casually about everything, so I ignored her. When she arrived in the evening, I pretended to be away till she left. After that, she kept phoning and texting me, but I never answered. Funny thing was, she didn't apologize to me in any of her texts or address the situation, just pretended everything was fine. At some point, she probably knew I was mad at her. She got Hannah to text me and defend her instead of apologizing. That worsened the issue, because when Hannah texted me, she apologized that she prevented our mother from being with me during labor. However, she stated I needed to understand that she had been dumped by a long-time lover after just dating him for weeks. She had a crush on a college boy who had a girlfriend, so she never pursued him. She maintained in touch with him, became friends with him, and fell for him after they graduated since she never got over her infatuation on him. Several weeks ago, that guy and his girlfriend split. He asked Hannah out weeks after their breakup, and she accepted. After 2 weeks, they broke up, and he told her he wanted to stay friends since he wasn't ready for another meaningful relationship after ending a long-term one 2 weeks earlier. Hannah didn't like it, so she fought him, which led to him blocking her and calling her crazy and psychotic for taking a fling so seriously. I would have felt sorry for her normally. The truth is, she caused this. She's not a child, and she should have known he was using her as a rebound to get over his ex. I couldn't sympathize with her, and I was furious that our mother had skipped the birth of her granddaughter after pretending to be nice to me for 9 months because she couldn't handle breaking up with a guy she'd only been with for weeks. That message made everything worse because I disliked them even more. Basically the last straw. I blocked both of them everywhere, and they stopped contacting me. This was a week ago, and my daughter's christening happened a few days ago at my family's church. The ceremony was tiny and intimate, with only a few friends, cousins, and my close aunt. I know none of these people tipped me off, so it must have been a church member who told my mum about the baptism and how I named my daughter's godmothers, and she didn't make the cut. Anyway, since she knows them, one of the choir women probably told her. I don't know who it is, but I'll report them because that was unnecessary and generated controversy. After learning, my mum visited me the day after the christening. Even though I pretended I wasn't home, she discovered out I was on maternity leave and refused to leave after 30 minutes of waiting outside my door. She kept ringing the doorbell while I tried to put my daughter to sleep, which got annoying. After a while, I opened the door and talked to her to get her to leave me alone. She confronted me about not being invited to the christening and not being designated godmother when I opened the door. I informed her I had already decided. She could do nothing about it. It was a little argument. She explained that she was just trying to help Hannah because she was going through something. She said I had my friends by my side, but Hannah couldn't even tell them her problems because they had advised her not to go out with that guy, which she still did. Thus she knew they wouldn't sympathize. She just had our mom to talk to and was doing badly, so she moved in with her because she couldn't bear to be alone. As the older sister, my mum advised me to be more understanding and less selfish. However, I had no pity for Hannah since I knew she was foolish, and I told my parents the same. I had no pity for my mum because she made her choice when she refused to be there for me when I went into delivery, or even before that, when she refused to be with me in the last weeks of my pregnancy. Before the dispute could continue, I closed the door and ordered her to leave since I had to take care of my daughter and couldn't waste time arguing over trivial things. After she went, 2 of my relatives told me she's been slandering me on social media and calling me wicked and self-centered. I blocked her, so I can't access those posts, but the screenshots show she's unhappy. 2 relatives have suggested I talk to Hannah and my mother. I don't think I've done anything wrong, but my pregnancy has made me more emotional and impatient, so I need a second opinion. Was it ethical to not invite my mum to my daughter's christening or name her godmother because she stayed with my sister when I went into labour? Here are her posts, as some of you wanted to see what was being said. The first she wrote was, "I've done everything in my power to be a good mother to both my daughters, but I guess some people just can't see that. I can't be everywhere all at once, that's true, so I chose to be there for the daughter who didn't have anybody else by her side while she was dealing with the worst kind of heartbreak, and I guess that makes me the biggest villain in the world. But what does that make the daughter who cut me out of her life over something as small and petty as this, and didn't even allow me to be a part of my granddaughter's christening? I think heartless would be the word." The second post, a few hours later. "I feel nothing but pain for Hannah. Even after everything that has happened, she still has been holding out hope that maybe my other daughter will cut her some slack and try to understand what she had been going through. But I know that it's pointless. Hannah doesn't want to be the reason why I never get to be the godmother to my first granddaughter. And I know that she's not the problem. I just wish I could get her to see that and stop blaming herself for whatever has happened. And I also wish that some people would stop being so blinded by their ego and narcissism that they aren't even able to understand their sister's pain." Yesterday's was, "Karma always strikes back. I'll see you when you as a mother go through this, and I'll forgive you for everything because a child can be selfish, but a mother can't." She posted these 3 posts and a bunch of sad quotes about how hard it is to be a mum. For those who have reached out to her personally to ask about the drama, she's taken great pains to explain it all and make me look bad.